So first, this morning's session is sponsored by Alliance. I'd just like to ask Murray Berrant, Key Account Manager, to come and say a few words.
Thank you, Anderson, and good morning, everyone. There is a tremendous buzz around the room over the last 2 days. Going forward, this is a really exciting industry to be in, which is tremendous. Just a couple of words. Alliance Group's strategy is to return more money back to its shareholder farmers. So we are currently in a 3-year program to deliver $100 million in savings, so that money can be passed back to farmers through the schedule, reinvested into our plant or in new in-market partners. We commenced our strategy last year, and we identified 110 projects that we were going to target. Last year, which was September to October of 15-16, we saved, of that $100 million, we saved $54 million. As we deliver on these projects, 110 in total, we will improve and look at new projects as we go forward to continually improve our returns back to our shareholders. The world is an extremely volatile place to work in. There are many parts of our business that we cannot control, i.e. the exchange rate, competition from other proteins, and even artificial meats that we saw yesterday. What we can control is our plants. We can control that, and you, as farmers, can control what's behind the farm gate. So the next session around the technical opportunities behind your farm gate is really important. We believe the discussions today will add value to you and your business and make better financial returns. Therefore, I wish you all the very best for the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Murray. Thank you, Alliance. So this morning we're going to run through a few of the stories that our farmers told on Thursday. So for those of you who were at the Advanced Party National Workshop, repetition, 2 things I've learned. So there will be an element of repetition. But I think these are stories which are worth hearing again. So we're going to get Jim and Hamish to share what they've been up to with you. And then after that, Grant is going to talk a little bit about his thoughts on the regional workshops. And then Lorna and Solus are going to tell you what they've been up to as well. But first up, Pānia.
Right, so what I've been thinking about recently is around progression and where we're going to take the advanced parties and the farms into the future. I'm just going to run through the presentation that Hamish McKenzie from the McKenzie Advanced Party gave at the Advanced Party Conference on Thursday, and talk a little bit about how that group has progressed and where they're heading into the future. So, I'm assuming it's all ready to go. Where do I point it? Sorry? Give him a sec. Okay. Right. So, well, the Mackenzie Advanced Party was one of the first groups to start up, and I've been involved with facilitating that group. It's been a great privilege because it's exposed me to a different part of the country and a different... Here we are. So I get to come down to this part of the country about every second month, so from the Manawatu. So it's pretty cool. So I guess one of the things that this group's focused on is realising potential. These guys all had deer on their properties, but they weren't necessarily the primary focus. So the group has evolved a collective focus over the first few years, and what became clear is one of the great opportunities that they had to improve their deer performance was around feeding their hinds during lactation, and because of the environment that they're in, providing good quality feed to those hinds in that later stage of lactation was a major limitation. One or two are finishing stock, but a lot of them are actually selling weaners to finishers. So that was their main financial input from the deer. So they had to maximise on that opportunity. Where it's progressing to is we want to start looking deeper at our data, our productivity and our business, and we would like some tools and some inputs and some skills on how to do that. So, recognising the value of deer on Braemar. So a lot of these are quotes from Hamish and Julia. So Hamish's quote was that Braemar Station was always a sheep and beef farm that ran a few deer. And becoming part of the advanced party made them focus on their deer and realise that actually they're an equal part of the whole business, and needed more of a focus, more input to be able to realise that potential that they could contribute. So they didn't make one change. It would be pretty unusual for advanced party farmers to just make one change and measure the outcome of that. I'll just diverge a little bit and talk a little bit about trials within advanced parties and projects within advanced parties, because there's a view that generally from people from the outside that aren't directly involved with advanced parties, that they were set up to produce new information or new research, but that's never been the intention. So there was a little bit of talk backwards and forwards about, well, how can, in a farming environment, how can you actually do a proper clinical, a proper controlled trial that's going to come up with some results that other farmers can use? But we want to lift productivity. It's more of an extension activity. So every single farm will have made more than one change as a result of being in an advanced party. And it's the collective outcome of those changes and the culture change that is going to generate the overall results. So they had a focus on genetics to focus really on a hind that's going to perform in their environment rather than just going for high growth rates. Some talk about weaning and the effects of that on the hind and overall performance. So they have moved their weaning earlier, but we'll talk a little bit more about where that's involved. And of course feeding is the focus of every single advanced party, and every single farm is focused on feeding, but really specifically on their R2 hinds. The adoption of weighing and the learning around condition scoring, how to do it properly, and how to use those results to drive decisions. They actually had a whole day focused on learning that skill. And now every single advanced party member in that group will report on condition scores, and when we have a meeting we'll go around the group and they'll update what their condition scores are on their hinds. And then discussions around sales and finishing options, so developing more flexibility within their business model. Am I pointing it the wrong way? So the outcomes, probably the biggest outcome is around learning and attitude change. And this is a quote from Julia at the most recent meeting that we had, because we're talking about weaning and weaning date and sale date, and the options around managing the hinds under different weaning possibilities. And she says, although it feels like we've come back to what we were doing before, we're much more knowledgeable than we were then. And what that means is they've got flexibility and they know what some of the options are, and they can respond better and make better decisions. So I thought that was pretty cool. Looking at data, so this is where the group wants to go. Data and recording productivity is a little bit of a passion of mine, and there's different views on this and different attitudes. There's the why aren't farmers recording their productivity data view, and how can we make them do it? But I think we're looking at it the wrong way, because thinking about why are advanced parties so successful? Why is this the big buzz about advanced parties are just doing this great job and everybody loves them? The reason they're successful is because they're farmer-centred. And this is something that farmers are telling us that they want to be doing more of. I was asked to come be involved with the Mackenzie Advanced Party because they wanted to analyse their business and they want to know how to do it. It's not that farmers don't want to be looking at these things and we need to be driving it into their heads that they have to be. So we're starting to look at things like the growth rates, and you can see that there has been some improvement in pre-weaning growth rates on the property as a result of those changes. Reproductive performance, so we can go back and look at this and say, well, there aren't any issues with reproductive performance in the mature hinds, but look what the feeding of those R2 hinds has done. It's lifted that conception rate up to 94%, which is pretty good in that class of land. And then starting to break it down into financial performance. So what are our deer contributing to our farming business? So this is the kind of level that we're getting to within that advanced party group, because they want to look at it. And so you can see that, this is a mixed operation, and everything contributes to the overall financial performance, and everything has its ups and downs. And so we can, so looking at it like this is really rewarding. So the hunger's there. I think Andy, quoting what Andy was saying about, what he got out of the advanced party conference was that farmers are hungry for information, hungry for knowledge, and hungry to look deeper at their farming practices and the results of what they're doing. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Kellogg project that I'm doing, which is around performance recording and data collection. And certainly from that, I got the same message from farmers. Yes, we do need to be looking at our productivity, at our performance, at our progression over time, and we want to be doing some level of benchmarking against other farms that are in a similar situation as what we are. So that's what my Kellogg project is around. What are the attitudes towards that, and what tools are required to make that easier? So thank you to Hamish Clark and Lyndon Matthews who've talked to me about that and renewed my enthusiasm for pursuing that project. One last comment is around progression, and have I got something else on here? I do have something else on here. So we're talking about where they go next, and we just had a meeting up at the Mackenzie. So this group's been going over 4 years, and they're still talking about really good advice on where to go next. So no shortage of ideas of what to do with this group. And getting some actual cost-benefit results of what they're doing. Again, looking more deeply at the effects of change. And this has been quite interesting, the progression of thought here from, we know we need to feed our hinds better, what can we do right now that's quick and easy? Let's put advantage feeders out and chuck grain in them. Yep, we've got a cost-benefit return, this is great. What can we look within our environment? What other options can we be looking at? Maybe we can look at growing better quality feed and more of it. And so Clayton's really got into looking at a whole range of different options for improving the quality of feed on the hills, and just by doing that, lifting performance in those hinds. So that's the way that one's progressing. I think that might be the last slide there. So we had a partners meeting yesterday morning, which got me thinking quite a lot about advanced parties and where they go and whether there's a role for partners in advanced parties. We have been solely focused on productivity improvement. That was sort of the mandate going into these. And my thought is, do we need to be looking more widely at how we can support farming businesses? Not necessarily making partners come to talk about feeding or genetics or how big antlers are, but their contribution to the whole farming business. So yes, that's it.
Bruce Cottrell also told us that people don't like surprises. So Jim was delighted this morning when I told him he was going to be speaking. He likes good surprises. Just one thing, in advanced parties we encourage openness and honesty, so I was a little bit disappointed with Jim for telling some non-truths on Thursday. He said he wasn't a good public speaker. That's rubbish.
Yes, I'm used to seeing lots of deer and no people, and I go to no deer and heaps of people. So I learned another thing in Wellington: don't do a good job because you end up doing it twice. So I've been on this property for 5 years. Yes, their temperament's excellent, and really good growth rates and everything. But yeah, reproduction has been a problem. So, can you hear me? So after 4 years of taking out wet dries, and we still weren't making any headway. Still, weren't going ahead. So, oh, that's the wrong bloody way. There you go. You have to teach me, Tony. So yeah, so struggling with first and second calvers. Getting them pregnant wasn't a problem, but just at weaning, the fawns weren't there. Everything was being done properly, like the hinds would be weaned 1st of March, and for 5 days they wouldn't get bugger all, but after that the target was to put 1 condition score on the hinds in 25 days. So they're getting leucine, baleage and nuts, and 2 weeks before that they'd get a drench. So all the problems should have been out of the road, but it still wasn't working. So this is a bit about lepto that Dave Lawrence put in for me, and then he never helped me out, so it was good of him. So yeah, here we go, here's the trial. So 2 mobs of hinds, 85 per mob, 2nd and 3rd calvers, both as equal as I could get them. Same grass covers all the time, even the grass ages were virtually the same. And so we vaccinated 85 and didn't vaccinate 85. So the unvaccinated ones to the bull came in at 87%. The vaccinated ones came in at 93%. And the fawns also, we weighed the fawns at weaning. So non-vaccinated 72 and vaccinated 76. So a huge difference. And the vaccinated ones is virtually no tail end. So then I thought about, work out, is this worth it doing it and what it cost us? So yeah, so 6% improvement, which is 5 more fawns out of the 85. So 5 times 420 is 2,100. Better weights, so extra 4 kilos on those animals, 550. That's pretty cheap this year, $1,700. And labour costs and vaccine for the 85 hinds, $170. So I paid myself $50 an hour, so I have to tell the boss that when I get home. So there's a benefit of 3,670 over 85 hinds. The other thing I didn't factor in there is those hinds I'd actually been culling that had gone down the system. They actually should still be there if we let go beforehand. So it's huge on our property. And there's actually a whiskey called Connemara. So that's what you look like on Sunday morning. That's it.
And I took out that last slide that you had yesterday, which was a piece of egregious, unpaid for advertising, Jim. So talk to Pat next year. We all got terrified yesterday about the threat of technology and digital evolution, but there are also lots of opportunities around the adoption of new technology. Jeff Smith from the Hawke's Bay Progressives Advanced Party gave his presentation on the use of drones for deer. Jeff's got a full-time job off farm, so he's looking for labour-saving devices. So he needed to make some changes to muster getting deer in safety, not pushing on fences, and time management. So he has some other uses for drones around the farm, which you can read there. And they're probably more interesting was showing a little video that he had taken with his drone of him mustering deer. It's no soundtrack, so just hum. Or sing. got the news. You got those news. There we go. There we go. So there we go. Thank you. So that was from Jeff. And now I'd like to ask Hamish to come up and tell his story, singing as well if you want. Tell it in song.
How do I use this? Push the white button. Okay. Is it up? Hi guys. Hi. For those that don't know me, I'm Hamish Clark. I'm farm manager on Timara Farms, family farm up in the South Waikato. So we're currently 1 year into our advanced party, and I'm 18 months back into my farming career. So one of the things I came back from university with was in 2008, when my trip to Lower North Island, I got the opportunity to see what was going on with spray and pray, and it fascinated me to get the more opportunities out of North Island hill country and see where we can lift productivity. So it's something that I brought home, and it's very much in the experimental stage. I'd like to declare that right now that it's not a sure thing. There's a lot of risk. But it's something that we looked at and realised that if we can get it to work, it's going to completely change our hill country. So here's the why and what we're trying to achieve. We identified that we had a real opportunity with our young deer, and that we need to look at how we can get them into better condition, better body weights. And so we started looking at specialist crops and specialised area. We opportunity cost was pretty low because we had an area of 6 hectares that we literally could not force stock into over the winter. It was such a rubbish grass. To give you some background on it's actually a new farm that we purchased 2 years ago off a fellow deer farmer who retired out of the industry. And yeah, a lot of it was gorse. And so as we're taking out the gorse, we're starting to have native pastures come through underneath, and those pastures are highly unpalatable. So we're looking at specialised pastures for different stock classes, and the goal was really to go through a two plus years cropping system to cope between old pastures and new pastures, and hopefully lift the productivity of the entire farm, and also to offer new opportunities around how we manage stock and free up more land for other stock classes. So we get straight into the numbers for those that are big passion about numbers. I crunched these out the other day. Look, it's pretty basic. I was on limited time. I was busy, and but things I really like to point your attention to is up top line there, chicory and Italian seed. You know, we're using high rates here, and that's what we found to work quite well. We've been successful. We've seen multiple germinations of seed, and I guess one of the other key things is that we have been using slug bait quite heavily to make sure that we don't get our seed taken out. Yep, and multiple sprays, of course, to getting it forward. We're taking 2 sprays out to take the native pastures out, and then we're going back into a crop. So there's your costings for a chicory crop, and I've also got your costings for a pasture crop here for those that are interested. Slightly different system, going into an annual over the winter rather than Italian, and but overall, I think it's reasonably cost competitive. It's when you look at the opportunities, how else can you crop steep hill country? So this is what we're doing at Timara. So we're actually running a 2-year cropping system. So we're running pasture in the first year, then we're going into chicory in the second year of a pure sword, with the annual in between, and then going oversowing Italian into that chicory crop. And we're seeing a $200 hectare reduction in cost by going back to back. So just walk you through what we did. So last winter we hammered it with a mixed age Heinz, and tried to clean out as much of the thatch as we could. The truth is we weren't successful. That's how bad the native pasture species was. We still had a thick thatch, and it wasn't working very effectively. So here's some photos. I can talk to the cows come home, but this is the reality of what we were facing in these paddocks, and this is after it's been decked and cleaned out. So going forward, mid-October, we moved the Heinz and allowed it all to freshen up. The green leaves come back through, giving us a better spray cool. So we used 6 litres of glyphosate in the first spray, and then we let the weed seeds germinate and come back up, and then we went back in with 3 litres of glyphosate after that to take out as much of the initial weed seed bank as we could. So here we are. This is the early days of the chicory crop after post-spraying and early germination. Just giving you some idea of the country that we're working in, and obviously this is post-gorse, so it's actually taking out our gorse weeds at the same time as well. So summer crop, low fertility on this country. We've put well over a tonne of DAP on it, capital fertile on to try and bring it up to speed. Oversowing. And with the chicory and the pasture, so it's quite high seeding rates, and the use of slug bait. But the point is that we don't want to go over the helicopter twice, so we make sure we get it right the first time. So here's the pasture crop. Lesson learned: make sure the helicopter gets it land in the right paddock. Yeah. So the scenario was that when we mixed the seed in with the fertilizer, it had to go on that day, and the wind got up and we had to spin it on, and the helicopter, as you can see on the left-hand side, looking at left-hand side, the helicopter missed and ended up in the next paddock. So we've got a heap of it growing in our winter crop paddock right behind it, which is growing really, really well. The point in this photo is that you can see the thick thatch and see the effect that it has on the germination, that it would not germinate, come through that thick thatch, the plants would not come through it. So here's our chicory crop. Dad always tells me off for using this photo of chicory because he says it's the worst bloody photo I've got of the lot. But like that, I don't want to make it easy and make it all seem like there's something you can go and willy-nilly and it'll work, because it's a high risk system, and that is literally the worst part of that paddock. So, but I just on the other side there, you've obviously got what we had before, and I think we're going forward, not backwards. The opportunity cost of actually trying to change that pasture into something new was pretty low. So the hard part for me, and this is the stage we're at now, was trying to take it out of those summer crops and then put it into a winter grass. We got it wrong this year. We went too late. It's been quite an insight to realise that heavy rain's really important for germination. It pushes the seed down on soil contact, and it also it initiates obviously the germination factor of actually soaking the seed to make it start to sprout out. But sorry. But we went late, and we're also seeing multiple germinations. So if you ever do this and you're sitting back waiting and it's not happening, just have a bit of patience. I have like a lack of patience, and it's frustrating the hell out of me. But In the chicory crops, especially, we saw multiple germinations. We saw about 3 germinations. So it's kind of a bit weird, I guess, to like be sitting here talking to you as velvet-focused people, but to be so concentrated on a grass. That's not one of ours, by the way. It's one of John Hunter's. It's a photo I put up on Advance Party conference. But I think that's the reality, that we have to go back to basics. We have to go back to the fundamentals, which is feed and low-cost feed. And for that, it was looking at our grass production and seeing how we could lift the productivity of our hill country pastures. I think it's an awesome opportunity, and it's going to really make a difference to our farm system if we can make it work. I had a chat to Bruce Wills yesterday around the environmental side, and I had a quick Google, Millennium, and I saw what's been happening around the spray and pray stuff, and I think it's Rangatiki. I think good management can overcome those challenges, and we're talking about deer, not cattle here. So there is a difference. We are not going to break feed in winter. It's going to very much be, they're going to be opened up on grasses over winter and taken off. It's just going to be a part of a high performance rotation. So, like I said, a few lessons learned. Mild winds have the potential to really mess with your seed placements, which will really stuff up your crop. Use higher seeding rates. We found them to be reasonably successful. Thick thatch has a real negative effect on your germination rates. Slug bait is really worthwhile. It saves a lot of cost of having to sow it twice if it goes wrong. We're looking at around 3 sprays, glyphosate sprays. It seems to be reasonably successful in taking out the wheatgrass weed burden. Not all of it, but we're not, hill country cropping. It's not going to be perfect, but we're looking at probably 90% of our seed bank's gone now. Well, not seed bank, but our germination. There's very few grass weeds coming through overall. And then of course weather assist with germination. So there's an opportunity to teach old dogs new tricks. And I think there's a real opportunity out there for the deer industry in particular, given that we have a lower environmental impact, and that we can potentially really raise the productivity of hill country within our industry. And if we could, deer are being forced more and more onto the hills, and I think this is a real opportunity for the industry going forward. And we're going to keep working with it. I don't think for a second that we've got it worked out. I know people have been playing with it a lot longer than we have, but I think the opportunity is worth the risk. And of course this is only possible because of our Waipawa Advance Party, who I think deserve the recognition, and of course Brian Wellington passed away, so he was integral for me in my support of what we're doing, and I think it shows the dedication of the man that even though he's very sick, he was out in the rain. Thank you. Any questions? Well, not the time.
Thank you, Hamish. One of the things that we need to do is to make sure that these sorts of conversations are held, these sorts of new practices or improved practices are being shared, and we're using the regional workshops as one way of getting those messages from the advance parties out to the wider community. And I'd like to ask Grant Charteris to just spend a few minutes talking about his thoughts on regional workshops. Thank you.
Yeah, I could do some stand-up and stretch exercises and all that, but it's not going to lead to anything exciting or dynamic, so I'll just crack on with what I've prepared. And I'm not that tall. When the idea of advance parties was originally dreamed up a few years back, it was designed as a practical vehicle that would drive practice change and lift productivity in the deer industry. This, as we know, is essential and still is, because as we grow our markets, we need more product that will fill that demand gap, especially vital as we go forward through a rebuild stage, which is critical to any growing industry. The advance party concept has taken flight and proven even more popular than we dreamed. But for it to be really successful for the whole industry, I want to talk about the next stage, which is vital, a vital link to its success. This link is the regional workshops. A regional workshop will focus on a specific topic chosen by advance party members. Members of an advance party will share what they've been working on, what they've changed, and what has or hasn't worked. Experts will also be invited to present additional information on the day that will hopefully tie in and back up data and findings from the advance party members. The main focus of these days is the discussion on how the results came about, the pitfalls, the strengths and the weaknesses, and the lessons for next time. And the major strength and benefit of these days is the results and findings can be dispersed and discussed with our wider deer farming community. And that knowledge can also be backed up with some practical knowledge alongside scientific data, which is essential. We're a funny bunch as farmers. We can read something in text and sure that'll stimulate a thought process, but there's nothing quite like seeing the neighbour down the road and he or she achieving results in an environment that's similar to our own that will stimulate practice change, and that's the key. From my own experience, I was part of one of the first regional workshops, which was held at Takapau Golf Club by the Hawke's Bay Originals Advance Party. And our theme was opportunities of feeding brassica crops in vital times. Just to build a picture, we have quite a diverse range of land types in our Hawke's Bay Advance Party, ranging from lower, flatter country to higher altitude, steeper country. This in itself has its advantages as far as group learnings go, because we could split our focus within the workshop to a couple of us focusing on the feeding of summer crops, to feeding yearling hinds to realise their genetic potential through increased growth and condition for improved conception rates, and others in the group could focus on feeding of winter crops to mixed stage hinds for maintenance over the winter period, and feeding of velvet stags to ensure restoration of body condition post-raw to achieve maximum velvet production. On the day we jumped into vehicles and visited nearby farms, Jedburgh and Maranoa. At these stops we discussed crop measurements, as all APs had their winter crops cut, dried and weighed to give dry matter content plus overall yield per hectare. Soon this morphed into a robust debate around the intake of velvet stags over winter when break fed compared to an ad lib situation. We're very lucky to have our local star agronomist / honorary AP member and current grand final finalist Hamish Best from PGG Wrightson's to back up our findings and technical questions. Once back at the golf club, Karen Middleberg and myself gave brief presentations on feeding of crops to hinds over summer. This was accompanied by hind live weights in January, pre-rut, and June at scanning time. Jason Archer backed this up by presenting the hind growth rate graph, with predicted conception rates at different weights according to phenotype. The very interesting part of this was the actual results backed up this graph superbly, which all ties in nicely when that happens. When we got back, we broke into some groups and went through scenarios of where you had to recognise your own feeding systems and the gaps that you had in them, and discuss what crops would fit these gaps within your own environment. This in itself is a great way to encourage interaction from all involved from the day. The overall success of these days is the fact that it stimulates farmer-to-farmer discussion, but is also backed up with scientific expertise. For these to be effective, you need to be able to keep your messages clear and concise, clearer than what I just said then. The regional workshops are funded through the P2P and are a vital link from advanced parties to our industry, so get them behind them and share the knowledge. Any questions?
You have a minute for a question if you'd like, or not. No. Thanks, Grant. Now, I'd like to ask Lorna to the stage to talk to you about what she's been up to over the last little while.
Stretch, stand, move. So we've heard from Murray this morning already, reminding us that yesterday Bruce Cottrell said there are so many things outside our business that we cannot control, that we have to be really, really good at the things that we can control. And that's a nice link to what I'm going to be talking about now. So yes, thanks Innes. I'm Lorna Hum. I'm the Deer Health Project Manager as part of the P2P program. And this morning I just want to share with you the tools that we've been developing as part of the Deer Health Theme Group, some experiences on farm of this being used and the stories coming out of that, and where to next in terms of this project. So Deer Health Reviews. Why are we doing this? Last year in Dunedin, I presented to you some of the background behind why we're putting a lot of effort in this area. But simply put, there is a huge and often grossly underestimated opportunity to lift returns inside the farm gate. But by fine-tuning animal health management and controlling the things that we can control, we can get a lift in production and product and profitability. So what are we trying to achieve with this tool in particular? We're providing a framework to work towards that goes through an effective process that's been ground tested, and it's centered around that information-based decision-making concept. But what we're really doing is we're shifting thinking. We're shifting thinking from what to why. And particularly, we're encouraging that mindset of continual improvement and how we're going to get that 20% improvement just to stand still every year that we've been hearing about. But ultimately, what is it that we're doing? We're removing any health barriers that get in the way of top performance in any given system, and to lift individual farms and collectively are confident in growing deer industry's profitability. So, this is what we've been playing with. Out of the work done to identify the most beneficial process to get results from animal health planning, we have developed a workbook, a tool. The workbook guides you through a way of going around health planning that makes you really question, what am I getting out of every dollar that I spend on animal health, and where am I going next? There is a hard copy alternative here, but the real good use of this tool is going to be in the electronic format. Hidden in the tool, we have a lot of options to bring in more information. So cost-benefit analyses, risk factors, any questions that we can help preempt that give value to that process. Now, this is something that we strongly encourage is done as a team in conjunction with your vet or any animal health advisor. And when I say animal health advisor, we've got a lot of animal health advisors within our own advance parties. Everybody else's animal health advisor at the moment. But really, the point is it is a collaborative effort. So, the other reason that the electronic format is so much more beneficial than a hard copy is purely from a point of view that it can link to the other tools that we're seeing coming through P2P. So we have the growth charts, and we have the KPI performance worksheets, and that is all at a touch of the button, and we can really make use of the growing technologies. And when the vets are helping you with this, it's a matter of saving a wee bit of $1 in vets' time by them being able to use this as part of their reporting format. So the process can be broken down into a performance linkage. So it's not straight animal health planning we're talking here. We're bringing in where we are now, where we could be, but what are the health issues that might be getting in the way of achieving that top performance? And deeper than that, what are the most profitable and effective ways of managing those particular diseases? And what is out there that we're not doing that we could try? It's again about that constant questioning your own behaviour, which is part of that real key to success that we see and we hear about from people like Bruce. We need to monitor and we need to measure, and that's pretty important, and having something physical that we can recall better than a conversation over the back of the shed is going to help monitoring going forward. But remember, it is all about linking everything back to profit and making sure that we can justify the dollars that we're spending on animal health. Now, I'm not trying to say that everyone's sole motivation is financial when it comes to looking after the health of their deer either. That's a key point. But we do want to know that what we do is effective and it's our best bang for buck. So now I'd like to take you through some stories. The farmers that have been helping me work through this development phase, and I do thank them sincerely for the help they've put in getting me here. The key three things that I've taken from the feedback from them are that they really really enjoyed identifying the risks that their farm have unique to them. They are enjoying having a better understanding of the costs and the benefits of the different possibilities and why they've chosen one option over another and what may be a better choice. And then it's about a framework to regularly review, again, as I just said. So there's some people out there that can put it a wee bit better than I can.
Although we have been proactive in the past, this just brings about a better structure. And so we've actually got a document that we'll be able to sit down and look at and follow through, carry out. We've got things coming out of this that'll help our reproduction, help our weaner growth rates. It'll just help us going forward. Just the whole thought process of deer and the health surrounding them.
One more, Lindsay.
From the outcomes of this plan, I expect there will be changes made. We've got things already written down that will change from today onwards. We're in business. You like to have healthy, happy animals, but you want to make a profit at the end of the day as well. That's what we're here for.
Great. So as I've just touched on, having that physical record has knock-on benefits, not only for something that you can look back on, but from a staff training point of view and from potentially in the future meeting a higher standard of compliance in a way. Over to George.
Excellent, because we've touched on a few things that we don't talk about when we're in the velveting shed and things like that. So, and it certainly opened my eyes up to a few things like we could do. I've got a really good understanding of it now, and because I've got a good understanding, I can talk to my staff about it as well, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get them in the know on it as well.
So P2P is about creating tools for farmers, but there's no denying that in the animal health space, vets are a key partner in achieving our goals. So we've got an opportunity for vets to provide better value. And the feedback that I'm getting from the vets that I thank as well for helping me get to where we are in the current process, the feedback is that they're enjoying being able to provide more value for that consulting dollar that they're charging. They're really enjoying getting a deeper, more thorough understanding of the businesses that they're involved in, your businesses, and knowing financially where they're best equipped to contribute to the growth of the business. And really that two-way communication, that we're in it together for a common goal rather than a monologue of telling. It's a mutual learning exercise.
You're trying to look at the big picture, and you're trying to tie in the production gains that a farmer's trying to achieve with their animal health. What is quite different here is that for each of the animal health issues is that we're assessing the risk if we did nothing, and then we're also assessing the risk with the current management practices in place, and also what improvements could be made by additional management changes.
So I'll touch on that collaborative approach, that working together. It really is about optimising health and optimising spend, but just being a lot more content with the way in which you've got control over the things you can control in your business.
Look, vets are busy, farmers are busy, so really just to take some time to sit down and spend a couple of hours going through what needs to happen on your farm is really important for building the relationship. Lindsay's learnt some things from me, I hope. I've certainly learnt some things about the farm here, just because we've had the time to put into it really without any interruptions. It's coming up with the answers together so that we can find the correct path, because every farm is different. We both want the same things. We want the stock to be healthy and productive, and so do the farmers. So
where do we take this from here? What's next? We have a tool Fantastic. So I'm hoping that this is going to be available on the DINS website and in hard copy for anyone that wants it from the end of June going forward. But it's not just about that. We know from advanced party models it's about actions and it's about support. So one of the roles for me going forward is to ensure that the veterinary profession is best equipped to provide this assistance to help form part of that team. So we're working very closely with NZVA on training modules for deer vets specifically around these consultation skills and how they can provide more value in this area. And as Phil said to me, I'm pretty comfortable with this process now, but I'm going to nail it a lot better the fourth time I do it. So just a facilitator role there as well, because I've seen the benefits of people being kept on track in a facilitated way. And then we've got to follow the progression on farm and the changes that come out of this. And I think there's going to be, like the advanced parties, some really, really key, cool stories that we can follow to show that the investment here is going to be a profitable one. So thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, Lorna. The Animal Health Project has been perhaps slower to start than some others, but I think the delivery of the annual health review process and the workbook is going to be a really valuable addition to the dairy industry's arsenal for improving productivity and profitability. One very quickly.
You touched on the key point there, Collier, that this is a process, and in no way were we ever aiming to replicate anything that's already out. So it has to link in. It has to very seamlessly work with the technologies that we have now and what we will be using in the future. But it's about what happens up here first. And that's the next step. And it's a really exciting one that I'm looking forward to.
Thank you very much, Andy. Excellent question. Now, you made a very valid observation. Well done. Thank you. So that's a bit of an overview of some of the things that are happening because of the advanced parties, the regional workshops, and some of the outputs from the P2P process. Obviously, we also work very closely with Solus at DeerPro. So Solus is just going to take a few minutes to talk to you about Yoni's monitoring and some of the other things he might be working on. So Solus Norton.
My name's Solus Norton, with a little bit of growth for any of you who didn't recognise me. We're anticipating a cold winter down in Dunedin, so we thought we'd better get it cranking. I'll just use this, I won't use the lapel, thank you. Previously, Yone's Management Limited, and these days, as of February, DeerPro program. And at that point, we had a change of long-standing chairman Jeff Nielsen stepped down after 10 years from he initiated the program with Jamie Hunnam. And so we now would like to introduce Ken Blair. He's our new chairman from Balclutha with good skill set to bring to what we're hoping to get through in the next few years. So I'll just hand over to Ken just so he can say hi and let you put a name to the face.
Thank you, folks. Yes, Jeff did a great job of the initial work with Yoni's, and they've certainly over the hump now. But anyway, good morning, Ken Blair. It's been great. I love it coming to these conferences because it's very enjoyable, the learning, but also putting some names to faces I'm finding very helpful. And next month will be my first meeting as chair. and it's certainly a pleasure to be working in a positive industry and with positive people. It's just so exciting compared to what I'm used to. We're in the sheep industry. So DeerPro is just a small part of the deer industry puzzle, as we all know. But it's certainly as directors, and certainly me as an individual, but I know directors as well, take our duties very seriously, and we're certainly continuing to work for the best in the best interests of the company and the industry as a whole. So that's pretty much all I have to say, because Solus is the brains of the outfit, but I just wanted the opportunity to say hi, and it's been great meeting you all. Thank you.
See, I told you he's good value. Righto. Back at February, like I said, we were Yonays Management Limited, and we had a complete focus on Yonays, as we have for the last 10 years. So that was managing our database with over 99% of the industry deer production coming into one centralised spot that I'm feeding information back to farmers regarding Yonays. So we're working with a little bit over 300 farmers on farm to help them get on top of the disease and make the most of productivity opportunities. As of February, we had a name change to DeerPro, and I think at the branch chairs conference, I didn't do the best job of explaining to you the process or the background behind it. And I'm an excitable kind of a character, and I think I may have tried to get a little bit too much across in one go. So I apologise for that, and I'm going to have a better go at it this morning, but at a shorter time, no less. So the real take-home message is that we're keeping our foot on the throat of Yonays, right? So all of the usual operations that we've been doing over the years are going to continue, but we've recognised that the apparatus or the system that we've got in the program has certain capabilities and resources, systems, networks, etc., that could be exploited for more value going back to you guys. So we're going to look at a small role for exploiting some of these resources over the next 12, 18 months or longer, and it's a process of quantifying those, assessing them, and making use of the ones that are goers. So our goal for the next 12 months is to increase our farmer client base by 30%, increase our average industry cover. So that's the number of deer that come through the database that are from farms that are getting our information sent back to them. So if we can achieve that, then we'll be over half the industry production will be getting information from our program. And we also want to increase the coverage of the farms that are sending in deer that have the Yonays suspect lesions. So one of the exploitation options is sending venison productivity information out to farmers. So we've been developing that in-house over the last 12 months or so, and so there's some useful metrics for farmers that we can send back and they can use to key in with Lorna's animal health plan and with productivity analyses, just helping especially farmers that aren't doing a lot of weighing or are not heavily involved in the monitoring side of their system. This is a pretty straightforward way of getting some of those key indices quickly in your hand that you can cast an eye over the position of your deer unit. Another key part is managing and reducing our costs. We've made an undertaking to function at less than the cost of Yonays Management Limited, and we're going through budget line by line to make sure that we can achieve that. So the strategy for achieving those goals is to continue on with our usual program operations, so that's surveillance and higher level monitoring, as well as support on the farm for vets and the farmers. And we're looking to work with a P2P program offering 500 farmers this productivity information, so through a mail out, so a cheap but easy way of communicating with a lot of you folk to give you a taste of it and see what you think. And we're also looking with P2P advisory group about what other options we could possibly support with our data. And as I said, cost management is a really big thing. So it's about keeping in step with you guys, providing a service that you think is valuable and worthwhile, and really that's what I myself am interested in, and I'm sure the board is totally behind me on as well. We're interested in the stakeholder feedback, and I've had some good feedback over the last couple of days from the branch chairs, and it's helped me think. I was actually thinking back to Bruce Cottrell and him saying, oh, it's all about, it's communication has got to be relentless, and it's got to be with your customers. And I sat back and I thought, well, I haven't done the best job of communicating with the DFA over the last year, or probably two. And that's triggered, okay, I've got a point in my diary to think, righto, let's work with, have a yarn to Dave Morgan and his group and just say, righto, what is the best way of keeping you guys in touch with what's happening and getting your feedback. I have total confidence that we're going to keep our foot well on top of Yone's, and I think there's a lot of extra opportunity in here that we can help deliver back to you guys. But a side note on, we've heard a lot about information on the last couple of days, and I think you can get a little bit bedazzled by it, and I think part of the, data and data management's my bread and butter, and I think it's easy, it's a bit of a swamp, you know. And it's very easy, how many things to show up in your inbox that you just delete, and how much, like Instagram, Facebook, all the rest of it. I'd urge you not to lose track of the things that really define and determine the production and all parts of your farming system, not just the production, but your own well-being and all the rest of it. Don't lose sight of the key things that drive those. And I will do my best at my end, managing screes and screes of data, to send back to you guys the stuff that's useful, and not to send back to you reams and reams of stuff that you're just throwing in the bin. So that's it in a nutshell. Take any questions. At morning tea. Thank you.